How we doing, guys? You all right?
I'm here today in Brixton as part of Virgin Unite's Founders Unite initiative to support Black-founded businesses and highlight unique barriers faced by Black, Asian and ethnic minority founders. I'm joined today by my friend Karl Lokko, who co-founded Black Seed Ventures in 2021 to empower Black founders and help them secure funding. And Lola Cawood, who is the co-founder of Tiwani Heritage, a brilliant and sustainable hair extensions brand. I'm so excited to hear about their entrepreneurial experience and discuss the success of BAME entrepreneurs in the UK, but while also exploring some of the barriers that they are up against. Hello, Karl, and hello, Lola.
Hey.
So nice to have you both here today. Karl, let's start with you. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, how you became such a champion of Black founders, and also the importance of highlighting Black business excellence?
Karl Lokko, Brixton boy, born and bred. That being said, definitely took a detour, even though academically bright, grew up in a situation where there was a lot of happenings, and I subscribed to a way of being, and actually my dark evolution started when I witnessed someone being shot for the first time when I was 12 years old. And fast forward, was able to denounce all gang involvement. And after my rehabilitation, I actually just returned to my first love, which was reading. I became an autodidact and just got down into personal development. And then once that was done, I actually said, you know what, I need to bring about a formalized version of what I underwent to change more lives. And I spent a lot of time campaigning for a more fairer, more inclusive business ecosystem. And then eventually during the pandemic, like the rest of the country, I was forced to sit down. So I was like, we need to be able to help those that are actually furthest from the throne room and furthest from the opportunity. And that's where Black Seed came in terms of inception and genesis. And fast forward now, we're a £10 million fund, and we aim to solve for the systemic and historic barriers that Black founders face when trying to enter the ecosystem. So yeah.
It's absolutely brilliant. £10 million, and how many funders are you hoping to support with that?
30 actually, 30 founders over 3 years.
Fantastic. Yeah. So what sort of things are you doing with the founders? Is it just money, or are you giving them some support as well?
Money is definitely the bulk of it. Part of our messaging is that Black founders have been over-mentored and underfunded. So the funding we have to get right. You have to actually give capital. In terms of allocation to the Black founder, only 0.24% of venture capital in the last decade went towards Black founders, which is abysmal, So we have to fix explicitly money, but we also offer, inspiration capital, emotional capital. We give 6 months rent-free occupancy in our offices and in Brixton. We also have offices in Greater Manchester, 2,400 square foot for our up north Portco. We help them to stimulate conversations with all of our partners, whether that be venture, corporate, tech. We just wrap around them essentially.
Brilliant, and you can be also that inspiration to other VC funds that it works.
No,
and
absolutely.
Other people should be investing in Black-founded businesses too. Lola, over to you. So lovely to have you here today. Thank you for joining us. Can you please tell us more about your company?
Tiwani Heritage was originally conceived back in probably 2017, 2018 actually. Ultimately, it was born out of frustration that we both experienced with regards to just feeling like there wasn't enough available here in the UK in terms of products and hair extensions that enabled us as Black women to embrace and celebrate our natural hair. And we also felt there was a crucial customer service piece that was missing. Typically in a Black hair shop, as you would call it, that element is often vitally missing, and we felt that it was really important to be able to bring that to our customers and also be able to say to them, we're just like you, we've used our products, we wear our products. In fact, I'm wearing one of our styles today, these incredibly long twists, which is our Madame Yoko braiding hair, 82 inches. Not that practical for everyday life, but looks great. When we were doing our original market research and just trying to understand a bit about what was needed in the market, we realised that the synthetic hair route, which is what we wanted to go down, was actually quite fraught with issues when it comes to the environment. Synthetic hair is basically plastic, and ultimately it's used once. And we felt that we needed to provide a solution to that rather than just be adding to the problem. So we have our bespoke recycling scheme, which allows customers to purchase their hair, use the hair, send it back to us, and we make sure it's disposed of correctly.
That is fantastic. And do you also have plant-based hair?
Yes, we do. Very excited. Ultimately, the hair itself, or the fibres itself, are harvested from as a natural byproduct of farming bananas and pineapples. It's amazing what you can do to these fibres when you harvest them. You can process them, you can dye them, you can treat them very much like hair. So yeah, we're really excited to go on that journey and bring that to market for our customers here in the UK and broader in Europe, the US, everywhere, world domination. It was just about learning and understanding and becoming aware of the issue. And I think now what's great is that people are hearing what we've got to say, we're posting about it on our social media, people are understanding that there is an issue, conscious of the fact that particularly women of colour are huge contributors to this issue and are really quite inspired by the fact that we're trying to do something about it. So yeah, really open to it.
I truly believe that Black-owned businesses are changing the world. I mean, there's a great statistic here that says in 2020, a study by Federation of Small Businesses, they reported that 30% of BAME-owned businesses have recently engaged in products or services that are innovative, compared to only 11% of non-ethnic minority firms. And also, BAME entrepreneurs are contributing 25 billion to the total value of goods and services produced in the UK. I mean, that is just so brilliant. And these are often purpose-driven companies, and there's companies that are really driving change. Like, when you hear those figures, what are your guys' first thoughts?
A lot of the problems that remain unsolved, I believe it's because of exclusion. So the more we include, the more solutions, essentially. So yeah, I mean, that number can actually increase. That is being stifled and still being able to generate that output, because the Black entrepreneurial ecosystem is a pressure cooker. Just out of necessity, they've had to become super resilient. I don't even want to call it resilience. I mean, with those sort of statistics, I mean, that's the weight and the burden you're carrying to even just operate and to like kind of raise your head in the morning and to crack on. I mean, it's a tough gig. So, I mean, entrepreneurship is hard for everybody. You know, it's not the easiest path. But that being said, if you're carrying bricks in your bag and bricks that society's put in there, I mean, it's a pain.
Now, you say it's been stifled, and it really is. It's been stifled by the funding as well.
Absolutely.
1.7% of all VC investments go to an all-ethnic startup team, and only 0.02 of VC funding in the UK has gone to Black female founder in a decade.
Wow.
I mean, it's numbers that you can't just believe they're true.
There's I don't want to say ignorance, but there's a lack of awareness, I think, certainly amongst certain groups within the Black community who might not necessarily just be aware that there are resources and services and businesses and companies that are there that are set up to help you. You know, we didn't necessarily have that awareness when we first started out. We launched in 2020 and, you know, perhaps we were naive and perhaps there are other people that are much more knowledgeable about this stuff than we were, but we didn't know. So I think that in itself is a massive barrier, because if you don't know it's there, then you're not going to look for it. I think as well, we're both children of immigrants, and I think being a child of immigrants, I think, you know, they always say that representation matters, and you've got to be able to see someone out there who looks like you doing X, Y, and Z in order for you to even begin to conceive that you could also go out there and do something of your own. So I think that also has kind of made it more difficult for us to even dream big to some extent. And I think people are just realising now they can actually dream as big as they want to, and there are opportunities out there. And I think it's just a case of aligning yourself with the right people, tapping into the resources that you don't necessarily have, because none of us know everything, and just basically, just really throwing your all into really trying to make a go of it. One of the challenges that we faced is that investors and would-be investors, a lot of them fit a certain profile and don't necessarily therefore have the understanding of the Afro hair industry and what it's like and the challenges that are faced and what we're trying to do for the community and within the community. So I think that's a challenge as well, because you have that understanding and they don't necessarily have that understanding. So then it's like, do they fully understand your business proposition and your situation? So I think there's a few
the importance of diversity in all areas of our community, including in VC funds, is just so vital to make sure the funds are all getting to the right places and to brilliant businesses like your guys. Essentially,
like, there is that lack of awareness regarding OPM or other people's money, and that is leverage in itself, you know? My co-founder, Cyril, he's a three-time start-up entrepreneur, had moderate success in the US, was able to raise successfully twice over there, came to the UK, back to the UK, after a 10-year stint in Texas, pitched to over 100 venture capitalists and wasn't able to raise a penny. But even with the awareness, if those hostilities exist, I mean, to be able to even, like, access it is another thing within itself, you know. And I actually had to use my acquired nepotism to actually get him funded, and not because it didn't have its own merit, but I mean, it took a warm introduction to even be able to broker that interaction in a way where it could actually, you know, create conviction, you know, in the investor.
No, and the numbers definitely are still
This is
speaking to
it.
say there's not enough,
Absolutely.
but how fantastic for what you're doing to try and change that. And how great for what you're doing to, like, you're one of those fantastic businesses that have started, and you're going to be that person that other people can look up to.
It's a lovely thought that somebody could look at what we're doing and be inspired by that. And, you know, I think that's one of the best possible outcomes of running a business like we are. So, yeah.
No, we are inspired. We really are.
sure.
And what's next for your business?
So for us, it's the plant-based hair extensions that I mentioned earlier on, and we're also going to be seeking a crowdfunding round. So that's definitely next for us, so that we can really launch the plant-based with, you know, in the way that we want to, and in the way that I think it deserves to be done. Because I think you've got to do these things in a way that's sort of bigger and better than where you've been, and just keep striving for improvement. So that's definitely next on our agenda.
Brilliant. And what about you, Karl? What's next for you?
I mean, to back these founders, essentially, just deploy and raise more funds, because I mean, fair enough, it's a milestone to be celebrated. You know, we've just raised 6 million at the moment of the 10 million beginning to deploy this year. But that being said, I mean, there's a lot more founders that they're going to be inspired by your moves. You're not going to say that, you know what, they're going to get that same twinkle in the eye, and they need to be able to have at least a body they can approach, you know, that is able to see them.
So, Karl, what would be your advice then to people from underrepresented communities who have a business and they're starting a business, but you know, there's big barriers out there, and we've spoken about them today. What would be your advice?
Yeah, I
to them?
mean, storytelling is so instrumental and it's so powerful. And I mean, the reality is they're gonna have a story. You know, they've had to climb the north face of the mountain to get to the point they're at. So they need to get good at telling that story. You know, I feel like that's it's quite key.
Karl, you're so right about storytelling, and you have a great story. Can you just give us a little bit of a history about how that all came about?
Tiwani Heritage, in its initial incarnation, was all about celebrating natural afro and curly hair textures. So it was really important to us as part of our brand ethos to live and breathe that in every aspect of what we do, whatever we're putting out there, so on our social media, but also just within our actual products. All of our styles are named after an African queen. When you purchase from us, you get a card which kind of just tells you a bit about that queen. They've all got amazing stories, her victories, her defeats, and everything that goes along with it. And it just feels like it's another way to sort of, you know, there's the physical wearing of the hair, but there's also the knowledge, and knowledge is power, and just understanding where it all comes from, and enabling our customers to just really have that cultural pride.
So, Lola, do you have anything from someone who's done it?
Networking as much as you can, associating and assimilating with the people that you want to get close to is definitely the way forward. I think as well, while obviously you've got to do your research and you've got to have an idea that's comprehensive in a lot of ways, I think that you should also allow yourself to flex and bend as things go along. So if it's not perfect in its initial incarnation, it can become as close to perfect once you get going. So if everything's not in place at the beginning, I think that's okay. And then the other thing I would say, particularly as a mother, just have that awareness that there are funds and there are resources set up to support you. We were actually talking to a venture capitalist a couple of weeks ago who told us that I had no idea that this existed, but there's actually like a childcare fund, so they can help you out with childcare fees. So I think definitely just keeping that open mind.
Yeah, great bits of advice, both of you. Thank you very much for today. It's been so lovely talking to you both, and we need to crack this. We're going to need to change those figures, and one step at a time. But let's climb that mountain quickly.
Definitely.
Let's do it.